Welcome to episode 8 of the MidLegs podcast. That is not Maxton Brunke with me. He is in Vegas, up $300. We just talked to him because he's um, about as upset as we are about the Reds. But in his place, we've got the coach, Jack Demmler. Dem, how you doing?
Dream, man. How are you?
You know what? I'd be a lot better if the Reds weren't 0-7 this week.
Yeah,
What a miserable week. And normally we start this with a vibe check. What vibes are there to check? We
yeah,
suck.
yeah. We really learned that April fooled us in that we shouldn't have trusted a team that just beat some bad American League teams.
Yeah, the American League is terrible this year. And I think that we've seen really just how bad it's been to the fact that, look at this. Look at this week. Losing 9-1 Friday to the Pirates, 17-7 loss on Saturday. Then your competitive Sunday through Wednesday lose 4 games where the opponent scores in their last at bat. What a horrible week. And then finish it off with an 8-3 loss today, in which we've forgotten how force outs work.
But I mean, for what it's worth, like I would much rather have the loss that we had today than the heartbreaking losses in the ninth inning because at least now I don't have to get my hopes up that we battle all the way back just to blow it again.
I disagree because you can't help, like, for example, and we'll get, but Wednesday's game, you can't help that. That was a home run in one park, the one in the ninth inning, and you've got a guy learning how to close on the fly. Like,
And it was a good pitch. Like he got a strike the first time it was low and inside. The second one was a little more low and right down, like little low middle as well. It was a good pitch. It was just a good hit.
exactly. And it's like, whatever with that. This is our own incompetence. That's what it is. Um, I don't know. I guess we'll start with positives from this week. Um, Spencer Steer's on a 10-game hit streak. That's not, you pointed that one out to me because
Yeah.
I'm not good at focusing on the positives. This
Well,
is
they mentioned yesterday he was on a 9 game hit streak and he went 1 for 3 today. I want to say yesterday they mentioned this is his I want to say third longest in his career in terms of hit streaks. It's good. He had a rough start to the season. He wasn't getting the hits that we needed him to get. He's got a solid bat. I mean when he's on, he's on. It's good to see him on that 10 game hit streak. I think it boosts his confidence. I think it makes him more confident as a batter, especially with how he attacks the zone.
Well, and you also look at him and Matt McLain's kind of figuring it out. Both of those guys that really came on in that 2023 season, and both of them regressed over the last few years due to injuries and whatnot. And they've definitely figured it out a lot more, and they look a lot better than they have in the past few weeks. Matt had a very good game on Wednesday night where, I think he went, what, 3 for 5, scored 3 runs like that was an impressive outing for him. And so I think that he's getting it figured out. He had a hit today at least. I think he also walked. I don't know. We're recording this on Thursday night, and I will be honest, I turned the game off today in the fourth inning. And I've done that a lot this week. And I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't. I'm not a fair weather fan or anything like that. But at some points you have to protect your peace. And for me, watching Saturday's game, watching today's game, where we just completely fall apart, that ain't good for me watching. It's either I turn the TV off or, I might be liable to buy a new TV after I chuck my remote through it. Cause it's like, and both of those Rhett Lauder starts, both of those a lot of walks as well, and then you bring in Connor Phillips, and Phillips is not the kind of guy to be put into high leverage situations like that. He's very volatile, and when you put him in situations like that, you have bad things that happen. Like Saturday he had 7 straight walks. This one wasn't so much his fault. He should have had 2 outs the first one of the first batters he saw. It just, I don't know, Dim. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think walks is a really big issue. I mean, we need to be better at attacking the zone. Uh, I don't want to harp on Phillips. It was a rough fourth inning, but he's getting thrown into a bad situation where already walked two, so he's coming in because Louder, he had some soreness. Hopefully, nothing too rough. Something, nothing. Hopefully, it's nothing that takes him out a while because, I mean, we're already hurt. We're banged up.
Yeah.
Um, Fortunately, we're getting Lodolo back tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, it's a tough situation to come into as a pitcher. Um, and so I don't want to harp on him too much, but overall, just all pitchers, we got to be better at attacking the zone. Like we're just throwing, we are not attacking the zone at all.
Louder before he left, and he had this issue on Saturday as well. Before he left today's game, he had, I believe, like 32 balls and 30 strikes. You're not going to have successful outings when you do that and when you walk that many people. And right now that's the issue. That's why the bullpen has completely sputtered to a halt. And I think the other issue is with this bullpen is, and we kind of I talked about it last week with Brunky, to where it's we aren't built. We don't. The bullpen doesn't have a long reliever. Connor Phillips is the closest thing we have to a long reliever. And with that, that creates the issue of we're having to throw either him, or I know we've threw Zach Maxwell out there at some point, where we're having to throw these, not proven relievers just to throw them out there and leave them out there to die, really, is what it's happening there. And that's not necessarily, what we need to, but we don't have a true long reliever, because if anybody is a true long reliever, they're actually having to pitch. They're actually having to start, because that's what we need. We don't have any starting pitching in AAA. Everybody's hurt at the major league level. Um, I do think that seeing how well Chase Petty did on Monday, he didn't quite get a quality start, but he really only made one mistake, gave up that 3-run homer. But outside of that, I mean, 5 and 1/3 innings, walks are going to be an issue, but he was able to limit them as much as he could. Um, he just made one mistake with that home run. That's serviceable, and that's what we need. We need somebody to go 5 or 6 innings and you know be solid enough to get us to the bullpen, to where we don't have to throw Connor Phillips out there for an inning and a half with the bases loaded.
And to build on that, I don't necessarily think it killed us because we have the offense that still has that fight in them in order to bring us back. And we saw it in that game where we retook the lead. Sure, we lost it after that 3-run home run, but we took it right back because I think this offense has the capability to keep us in the game. Today, not necessarily the best example, but we did see us score three more. We saw a solo shot from Sal. I think we still have the capability of an offense that can keep us in games and bring us back into games. We just have to make sure that the pitching, that the starting pitching, doesn't put us in too big of a hole that forces our offense's hand a little more.
Or, I mean, just figuring out how to do basic defense. I mean, we've talked about the issues that we've seen in center field this year and the outfield. I don't really think there was much with that this week, but
They know
you
how to.
definitely saw it to where there's mental mistakes on the base running a lot. There
Yeah.
was a lot of adventures in base running this week. Our situational awareness has not been good, and I don't understand why. And I think that there's sometimes I talked about this when we released this. We're going to put this out on Friday afternoon. The Thursday night video I did for Blalock Media on my TikTok, it really was, sometimes we need somebody who just screams at the players. You need that motivator, because I don't think that there's necessarily that leader in the clubhouse. At least, I don't think I can't think of anybody in the clubhouse who would sit there and, scream at the team to truthfully get their shit together.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's what they need to do. We were talking about this amongst friends about how it's 10-year-olds know that if you step on third, you tag the runner. And
Yeah.
even if you think it's a force out, you
Tag me.
tag
Play
the
it safe.
runner. And
Yeah.
Stevenson didn't do that. And somebody who, whether, in a not necessarily good locker room, but in a championship locker room, somebody is on him about that. You can't be lackadaisical like that. The Dodgers aren't lackadaisical like that. The big red machine wasn't lackadaisical like that. You had Sparky Anderson that would sit there. I think that was Sparky in the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You had Sparky Anderson in the 70s. if Johnny Bench did that,
Yeah.
Sparky Anderson probably would have had a heart attack. That would have been, you know, he would have ripped him a new one. And Tito's not that kind of manager, for better or worse, but somebody has to be that guy, and maybe that, the bad guy there, and, you know, call out your teammates when they're lacking effort like that, or they make a really stupid play like that. You can't have those. That's why we're 1-9 in divisional games, because we do stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I think we lacked that leadership the last couple years since we lost Votto. Since Votto left, I think we lacked that clubhouse presence, that the glue guy that also held you all accountable, that made sure that you knew that if you messed up, you were going to hear about it. I think we truly lacked that piece in the clubhouse ever since Votto was gone. I think we need that piece in the clubhouse as we progress throughout the rest of the season. We're going to need somebody to step up, whether that's even. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter how vet you are. I think Sal could easily step up. I think Sal could be like, "Hey, this is the player. We brought Key Brian Hazen, who's one of the best defenders, who's one of the
Yeah.
best third basemen. He should easily be one of those players that are like, hey, I got the force out at third. That means that your runner is not a force. You got to lay that tag down because he can easily come back to third. You got to lay that tag down. I think Key Brian Hayes needs to be that voice on the defensive front.
And like the first person that came to my mind, and albeit he's a little bit of a newer addition to this team, but the first person that came to my mind is either Gino or Nate Lowe. One of those two to be that guy. And I don't Gino, I'm not sure, because I still don't think it'd be Gino. But Nate Lowe, I think, absolutely could be that guy to where he can sit there and he can get on people with it and be that leader on the field, and be that leader, that motivator, because again, that is something we are sorely missing with everybody on this team.
I
One
also I also have an issue. Yesterday, it wasn't as much of an issue today, but the base running, when we are in situations like with runners on the corners, there was, I can't remember what inning, but we send a grounder to second. Matt wasn't going to get there at all. And I understand the argument would be, well, you want to avoid the opportunity of a double play and you want to keep the inning alive. I don't know that that was the time to send. I think our base running has been sloppy at best.
it really has been, and we've seen it, and that's basic things. We've seen a few times where they're always aggressive there, and I think that's just more of aggressiveness, and it worked later in the game when they were aggressive and scored McLean from second on that 2 RBI sac fly in the ninth on
Yep.
Wednesday's game. But you got to be able to kind of hedge that aggression. You got to be able to do what you need to. You can't get caught up in rundowns. You can't get thrown out at the plate when there's less than 2 outs,
Yeah, I think
in my opinion.
you have to know there's a time to be aggressive, and there's a time where we need to make sure that we, like, if we've got a runner on third and he doesn't need to go home, we got to keep him at third as long as we can. If it's not feasible to get him home, like if it's not a play where we can get him home easy. Uh, it's also a struggle with how we are with runners in scoring position. I mean, still the worst team in the
Yeah,
MLB with
by
runners in scoring
far,
position. Yep.
by
Yeah.
far.
Still the worst batting average with runners in scoring position.
So we went like 1 for 9 on Wednesday night. I don't think we really. I think. Well, no, I think we did have like one runner in scoring position before that fourth inning.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been tough. One thing that really felt good this week was the return of Captain Hook. TJ Antone back after his third Tommy John surgery. And, you know, every time after one of those Tommy John surgeries, you basically have to reinvent yourself as a pitcher. And doing it once is hard enough. Normally, you can go back to similar stuff. You just have to tweak a few things. Twice, you have to completely reinvent yourself as a pitcher. And to do it three times is almost completely unheard of.
Yeah.
It shows how far the medicine has come and the surgery has come. But he still had to basically completely reinvent himself as a pitcher again, and he did it. And he
Yeah, and he
made it
had
back up. And not only that, he was put in a pretty high pressure situation and got out of it.
Yeah, no runs scored. They had that one deep shot, which was kind of a little nerve wracking. I bet it was nerve wracking for him too, but we were able to make the play at the warning track. And then he had two strikeouts. I think that was awesome. It's an incredible story. Just his recovery and his bounce back and his persistence and perseverance. For him to go out and have the performance that he did, you can't be upset about that at all. Like that's just something that will cheer every Reds fan up.
Absolutely. And he's going to be someone who's probably going to have to be important. He's probably going to step into that kind of seventh inning role as we get into the post Pagan era. It looks like he's going to be out about a month or two, Will Emilio, which is a lot better than what it looked like it could be on Tuesday. That was bad. It
Yeah,
looked really bad when he went down like that. And I think that, we've got to be able to figure out how to use him there. But I mean, between him, Santiago, and Ashcraft, I think the back end of the bullpen will still be okay. We saw both of them blow saves, unfortunately, this week. I think with Santiago, I think with both of them, they just got to figure out how to be able to learn how to close. And I think that's where something that helps. One thing that definitely helps with the pitching staff, you got Derek Johnson, but you also have the Cowboy.
yeah,
Jeff Brantley being around this team is massive. And you could cut Wednesday night, he was talking Graham Ashcraft like, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Because Ashcraft, he needs to learn to have that killer instinct. He has the stuff to be a closer. He's got to learn to have that killer instinct and be able to really be able to get, these guys out. Like PCA there, that killer instinct, that extra inch on the pitch when you need it. If he had
yeah,
that, he doesn't give up that home run. And we at least get one out of this week from hell. But
yeah. I mean, the way I think Ashcraft had a good series. He had that one instance where bases were loaded and he still gets out of it in the eighth. I want to say that was game two. Might have been game
yes,
one, but bases loaded. You're worried that they're gonna get in a run, and he gets out of it, and you can just see the energy in him that he brings to that he leads to the ninth inning. Uh, I think to your point, he's got the stuff. He's got an incredible arm. I think he's got a lot of movement. He had a great pitch against PCA. It was the same pitch that got him swinging and missing the strike before. It was just unfortunate placement, a little over the plate. Um, I think we can work with it. If he's going to be the closer, I think I have no problem with that. We can work on it. I don't necessarily mind him or Santion closing games.
I think either of them will be fine. The biggest issue I have with the bullpen right now is number one, we don't have a long reliever in there. The closest thing we have is Connor Phillips. We already talked about him to where we have to have somebody who can just eat innings and isn't going to die out on the mound doing it. That's been our issue. Number two, with some of the guys we have in the back end of this bull or in the front end of this bullpen, I feel like we are not utilizing the arms that we have available to us as well as we need to. Because I mean, you're looking at, we finally brought up Antone. He needed a little bit of time in AAA to make sure he wasn't gonna, make sure that what he was doing with his arm was sustainable. Um, but you look at some of the other guys, Lyon Richardson. We've talked about him how many weeks? Let's see what his stats are in the minor leagues right now, because I remember for a while he didn't have any runs given up in the minor leagues, but I mean he's still, he's still good. I mean, I don't understand why we don't bring him up because what so far this year. Hold on, let me So far this year, a 1.04 ERA in 11 games. He has 17 innings pitched, only 8 hits, 3 runs, only 2 earned. He does have 6 walks, but 18 strikeouts in 67 batters faced. Yeah, that's why don't we have that brought up? Why are we bringing up Big Sugar? As much as, that's an awesome nickname, Zach Maxwell should not be on this baseball team. He proved why. Why isn't Lyon Richardson being brought up? Another one, Andrew Chafin, who had a 0.6 ERA in the minor leagues this year. He elected out of his contract because we didn't bring him up.
Yeah.
Why didn't we bring him up?
Yeah.
That's something that's a perfect example of what this team needs. You're telling me that like Luis May deserves more than this? Like, no, come on. We need to use the arms that we have because if we have those arms up, this bullpen looks a lot better, and I feel a little bit more confident. Because right now, who's the guys that we're throwing right at the moment? We're still got Pierce Johnson around. I don't trust him. Um, we get outside of Connor Phillips, which is a maybe. It's a toss up whether he's good or not. There's a lot of arms in the middle to back part of this bullpen that you're just not sure about. You got Brock Burks all right, but after that, everything's a toss up, and I'm not liking that.
Right. Now, what I will say, I feel like part of the issue is that we're asking a lot of our relievers
We
because I
are.
don't think our starting rotation has been. I mean, again, we've had to deal with injuries early on this season. I think losing Hunter the way that we lost him definitely hurt. Just seeing the regression from some of the starting pitchers, Andrew Abbott, I know a lot of people said that they expected it. Uh, to what extent did they expect it? I don't know, but I think we're seeing a little bit of a regression from our starting rotation. So our starters aren't doing as much as they should. So we're asking a lot more of our relievers, which might be leading to this feeling. I feel like for if you compare the relievers this year to like what the relievers are doing this year to what they've done in the past, I think if you compare them, I think they're improving. We're just asking them to do a lot more.
No, and that's the thing. And I think that's why we've seen the bullpen crumble as much as what we've seen over the last 2 weeks, because we have asked, I mean, they've been seen so many times
Yeah,
because what, each of these guys in the bullpen have been, they've made almost 20 appearances already this year.
yeah,
They've been seen so much. So, especially some of the guys that don't have, the guys at the back end of the bullpen will be fine because they have to be. They have that stuff. The guys who don't have that stuff, that's where you're seeing with Phillips, with some of the other guys there, to where they're not able to be able to put away guys. And with that, that's where all these walks are coming from. That's where all of the issues that we're having with these games getting away. It's why we have one of the worst run differentials, because if our bullpen is fine when we use these 5 or 6 arms, you know, that are good, and we can use them in the seventh, eighth, and ninth innings, maybe the sixth inning. Sometimes when we're having to cover the fourth and fifth innings, it's
yeah,
over.
yep. Totally agree. When you have starting pitchers, and again, I know Louder left with soreness. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious. But when you got pitchers leaving in the midway
Yeah.
through the fourth with 0 outs, and you're already going to your bullpen, you are playing from behind early. Even if there aren't that many, even if you're down one, if you're going to your bullpen in the fourth inning, you're playing from behind early.
Yeah. Don't mind a stupid sinus. Dude,
You're all
living
right.
in Ohio in May, it's already bad enough without a 7-game losing streak with the Reds. And you got the allergy, the cottonwoods are blooming.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You got so many. Oh my god. Like I was driving around today and they're just blowing in everywhere. And I'm like, that's it. That's why I've been miserable all week. Oof.
Yeah.
So don't mind that. People are gonna be watching back and they're gonna, oh, it's a Panic game. It's a Panic game. Oh God. Don't watch on YouTube this week. Please listen on Spotify. Although it's at this point, like they're already watching it at this point. So, uh, finishing out just, looking at what we need to do this week. Luckily, we've got another American League team and one that's been very susceptible with Houston. Hopefully, this can be a little bit of a get right game, at the very least, for the bats and the bullpen, with
We
how
got
terrible Houston's pitching's been.
we've got 6 games against teams sub 500, which is, a promising sign. We also get Lodolo back, so I'm excited to see what Lodolo could do. He's another pitcher that's dealt with injuries, a lot of injuries in his career. Um, I'm a little nervous to see his first start, but I think it's a good team to bring him up against.
Well, and you got to be able to see that breaking ball. It's how that breaking ball looks is going to how everything works, because that's been the issue. He gets these blisters because of how he holds his breaking ball. It's a question of how does he look with that, and is it something that will continue? Because if he goes down and we can't use him, we are in a world of hurt, because at that point you're down basically four starters. You're already having Chase Petty having to start again now in Louder's spot the next time around, or reshuffle that, however that'll work. Um, yeah, that's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to figure out how we're gonna do that if we can't get Lodolo to have a good outing, and if he can't stay at the major league level, we're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Eddie, you haven't been on the entire year, obviously, but what have been your thoughts the entire season with the Reds, and what are you looking to hopefully see the rest of the season?
Oh, I, I don't know because I mean, May told us, I think May told us more than April did. Um, I think these last 7 games told us a lot about who we are as a team. Again, I think we're a team that has fight. I think outside of this game, the first 3 games of this Cubs series, we saw a lot of intense competition. We've seen good offense. We've seen spurts of good offense. I think we've had some fielding issues in this series that I would like to see cleaned up. We had that drop in the center field early on. It was against the wall. It was a tough catch.
I
I'm not blaming him,
Yeah, I don't
but
I don't think that was that bad.
it's
I've
in
seen
your
so many. I gotta pause because I've seen so many people on my TikTok with that. That's not an error.
right,
That's a very tough play. You're going up against the wall. It's hard enough to go up against the wall anywhere else, and it's a brick
especially
wall
yeah.
at Wrigley.
Wrigley's a
That's
tough
that's
wall.
not an easy play at all.
But right, it's a tough play to make. A lot of people would just say, like, if it's in your glove, you got to catch it. I get that. Um, had a couple errors. The extra inning sidestep from Ellie on that high chopper. That was rough, but he's been a great fielder. And
Yeah.
compared to last year, he's grown immensely. I'd like to see our fielding improve. We had that one streak early on in the year where we didn't have errors. Uh, I'd like to see us get back to that where we're just cleaning things up. Um, Better base running. I just, I to me, this series makes me feel like we haven't changed from last year, where we're
Yeah.
still struggling pitching, we're struggling attacking the zone, and we're still struggling with runners in scoring position. It's been an issue since hell COVID, early pre-COVID. Um,
It's been an
if we can
issue
clean
since
that up,
Dusty Baker got fired
yeah,
all the way back in
and
2012.
yeah, it's just it makes you think about like what if we just kept him. But we got a lot of baseball left. I don't want to hit the panic button, but this 7, if we look more like we do these last 7 games, it's a problem. Like if we have, and this is this is a really tough division. This division is probably one of the best seasons it's had in a while, where everybody, like you can't count the Brewers out, and they're sort of towards the bottom. We are unfortunately at the bottom after
Well,
being at the top.
we're at the bottom because we're 1-9 in division, and that's the
Right.
thing that really concerns me, is the fact that we're gonna have to work back after that. That's
Yeah.
going to be so hard to get those tiebreakers back. And we saw how important those tiebreakers were last year, because that's how we got in over the Mets.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's so early, and I feel like we lost so much of what the identity of this team was. We had an idea. We thought we had an idea in April, and then we played these 7 games. Really, so it's a 7 game losing streak against divisional opponents. We've lost 9 straight because we won the first game against Pittsburgh, then lost the next 2, and then lost the last 7. So we haven't won a divisional game since early April. Um, so it's just if we have to redefine who we are as a team, if we have to reestablish our identity, like do it. If we need to start from scratch one more time, I'd rather you come to that conclusion now than come to that conclusion in July.
We've seen people come back. I mean, what? The Phillies a few years ago, they were much worse than what we're still over 500. You know what? We've seen teams like the Phillies, the Rangers in years
If I'm not
prior to
mistaken, the
where
Brewers last year.
exactly where they were, 5 to 6 games below 500 and they figured it out. They worked their way through it and they ended up making deep playoff runs.
And I saw a post from a post game for Tito, and he said, in a month from now we'll look back and just think of how stupid this series was and how bad we performed, but it'll be a distant memory. I'm hoping he's right. The way that he's talking, I'm hoping that this series will light a fire under our ass rather than put us in despair. I know it puts the fans in despair, obviously, but I'm hoping for the team it lights a fire under them.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping so. But again, we talked about it. Man, where's that motivation coming from? It's got to come
Yeah,
from somewhere. Um, but nonetheless, I've talked about it on my TikTok, and I'm going to shoot out Tim Hanna again. And you know what I'm going to say with this because we've talked about it all week. Where Tim, big Tigers fan, we used to do same thing with Brunky, where we used to do a radio show. Used to do the same show with Tim sometimes, and that summer of 24, he kept telling me, you'll always have the summer of 23. You'll always have the summer of 23. I had a dream this week where he was just floating around my head saying it. Like, it just, it's been one of those weeks where you just feel that. It's one of those weeks where you question if we're ever going to see this team ever be successful.
yeah,
And one has to hope that we do, and that's why we still watch, even if I can't watch more than the first 4 innings and have to go on a bike ride for the second half of the game, which was a very nice bike ride, but
good.
it's one of those. But hopefully, with an American League team and then also playing the Nationals next week, it should be a lot of a better week. We'll have Brunky back next week. Thanks for pinch hitting Demmler. You're like Nate Lowe. You know
Good to
what?
be here, man.
You're like Nate Lowe. You come in, you kill it.
He's been good when we
He's
brought
been
him
good.
up.
Oh yeah, but that'll wrap up the MidLegs podcast for this week. Make sure to follow me on TikTok, Demmler. You don't really do anything on Twitter anymore. It's just Oregon stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty much being a sports reporter in Oregon. I tend to leave my Twitter specifically for my work. I don't try to dive into the my fandoms onto Twitter. I don't try to get too much engaged in that because those spaces can be dangerous.
Oh yeah, no, trust me, I hate Cubs fans. I hate Cubs fans, man. I hate them.
We don't have to see him until
Every time
July.
we play the Cubs, it just blows up.
We
Every
don't play him
every
again until
time,
July. We
man.
got time.
No, no, no. Because I don't want to go too far, but every time we play the Cubs, my TikTok section, my comment section is just miserable. It's just
Yep.
absolutely miserable. Especially when we lose. I hate that team.
Yep.
I think I hate them more than the Pirates at this point, which is stunning considering how much I hate the Pirates.
Yeah.
But hey, is what it is. But that'll wrap up this episode of the MidLegs podcast. Bronky will be back next week, and hopefully you will too. Please like and subscribe, and will follow us wherever you can find us.